this astaxanthin supplement, I hear it's 6,000 times stronger than vitamin C, 100 times stronger than vitamin E, and 800 times stronger than CoQ10?
Yes, astaxanthin supports joint health, memory health, even anti-aging and immune health. This Hawaii brand delivers 3 times more nature-identical astaxanthin to your body and is a better buy than the competition. It's called Xanthicin. Safely manage your inflammatory health with Xanthicin. It's pure and highly absorbed, providing greater benefits. Visit getxantho.com and these retailers.
All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Hawaii Football. Now it's episode 21. We are nearing the end of January. Time is flying. Recruiting day is nearing, and Hawaii is now without a head football coach. Things change quickly in the offseason, and the saga that just seems to never end. It is the never-ending story when it comes to the University of Hawaii football program. I don't know if it has been really on stable footing since maybe Nick Rolovich left in January of 2020. Since then, it's been the pandemic, it's been coaching changes, it's been a canceled season, then a revived season, then a no off season, and then an actual season of turmoil. Boy, it is absolutely crazy. And for us, and they get to talk about this for like an hour every week, it has been no shortage of talking points and fodder for us. So we welcome you again to another edition of HFN presented by Xanthicin. Also a big mahalo to our other sponsor, Spectrum Mobile. Jordan Helle, Hunter Hughes back with you, and holy smokes, that is sort of the family-friendly summary of my reaction last Friday around 7 p.m., right? We release our last episode 20, Thursday midday. We're talking about the Senate hearing. We didn't even have enough time to get through the entirety of that Senate hearing. We kind of got the gist of the accusations, the back and forth between UH administration at the time, Head Coach Todd Graham and those state senators. And we were kind of saving this week to get into what the path forward was like, what the action plan for the University of Hawaii was going to be that was laid out by Athletic Director David Matlin at the time. And then 36 hours later or so, 7 p.m. on Friday night, just about as the UH men's volleyball team was like taking the floor at the Stan Sheriff Center, it's like midnight Eastern, just all kinds of craziness. We get the news drop that Todd Graham has resigned as head coach. And I got to be honest, I did not see that coming. The administration at the University of Hawaii basically through their support behind Todd Graham, there were more questions for sure coming out of that meeting than answers. But one of the answers that I thought we got was that, hey, Todd Graham's the guy moving forward. And maybe it was just too much. There was just too much negativity swirling around this program. But Todd Graham ends up resigning just under a week ago. And my reaction literally was, holy bleep, because I did not expect that. Hunter, how did that news hit you? The fact that Todd Graham ultimately resigns from this program, and we'll get into the details here in just a second.
Yeah. Jordan, if you would have asked Todd Graham about a month ago what the issues with our program were, he probably would have denied that there were issues even to begin with, that this is just the product of the transfer portal. We wish those players the best. I mean, all of these things have been documented, cataloged, whatever you have it. That's been kind of the trajectory of this past off season, is potentially a coach not really recognizing what has been going on with our football program and the fact that it is in such disarray. I mean, I immediately texted you, man. Like, I can't believe this. I couldn't believe it either. With regards to what happened at the state Senate hearing and kind of the reaction to David Matlin in this last season as well, it was clear that Hawaii football was not able to part ways with Todd Graham. From their perspective, we were in no position financially for a buyout. We were kind of in this for the long haul. So those of us that fully understood the grasp of the situation, not being driven by emotion or anything like that, we need to get this guy out of here, we were not in a position to part ways with this guy. And so you and I, our last episode was like, okay, we get all the negatives, the negativity. How do we start piecing this together to build a solid future and a solid game plan with National Sign Day right around the corner? And then this happens. So, man, I mean, I have no doubt in my mind they're going to end up making a 30 for 30 on especially if we come out of this with a winning team, potentially even of our most famous ex-coach coming back and getting the reins. It's some stories just write themselves, Jordan.
Yeah, I mean, the University of Hawaii football program over the last nearly 25 years has produced like multiple 30 for 30 type storylines, whether it's like the 99 turnaround, whether it's the magical run of Colt
07.
Brennan's time on campus, like Colt Brennan himself, just his, unbelievable life story that ultimately ends in tragedy. I know, but like just him himself, right? As a 30 for 30, like the Todd Graham pandemic era, just so much of the last, couple of decades have been through the highest of highs and the lowest of lows when it comes to this program. And the crazy thing is, this is a program that's basically at 500 over the last years. It's not like it's the 0-12 98 season that they need to rebound from. It's not the 9 wins in 4 years or whatever it was from Norm Chow that this program needs to rebound from. It is a different type of situation that needs rectifying, if you will, for the University of Hawaii. And you mentioned signing day. And so usually we kind of start with a little fun, light pregame segment. But I figure we just kind of forego that because that's sort of what the reality is for the University of Hawaii right now. It's like you don't have time to kind of sit around and make light of it. It's like you got to dive head in because signing day is looming in less than 2 weeks. And so that direction turns there. But I do think it is sort of important, and it's not to sort of beat a dead horse here or, kick dirt on Todd Graham or anything like that. But I do think it is somewhat important to reflect on, what went wrong, basically, because if you don't learn from it, like you're bound to repeat the same mistakes, right? And that can't happen with this next hire. Like the program is, maybe if not on life support, it's teetering, right? Because you've lost so much of your talent. You don't know who your head coach is. It's a new reality with the transfer portal and all things like that. And so, it's really interesting where the University of Hawaii turns, what type of individual they're looking for, sort of what build they're looking for in terms of pedigree, in terms of Hawaii connection, right? Todd Graham's statement, I just wanted to read it in its entirety. It's not a long one, and it's really all we've heard from Todd Graham is, quote, "I am grateful to have had the opportunity to serve as the head football coach at the University of Hawaii for the past 2 seasons. After much prayer and reflection with my family, I have come to the conclusion that I will step away as head coach of the Rainbow Warriors with a heavy heart. I want to give my thanks and appreciation to the players, staff, and coaches who persevered through the challenges of 20 and 2021. It wasn't easy, but they all fought the good fight and we did things the right way. Our staff poured our hearts and souls into our players and truly made a difference in their lives. I could not have asked more of their commitment, work ethic, and love for our players and football program. But it is clear to me that I must step away and do what is best for me and my family and my health. I honor, value, and love all of my players and coaches, and I wish you the very best. The university has not asked me to step down. I am leaving solely for my family and my health. We have laid a strong foundation for future success, and I will always be cheering you on. May God bless you, Coach Todd Graham." And then in the press release that was put out by the University of Hawaii, it does make note that Graham resigned. So aside from the normal reimbursements and compensation earned, no additional monies will be owed to the coach. Wow. And that is a big deal thing about this. And so, whatever the reason, like I don't know what ultimately prompted Coach Graham to resign. I don't know if it was a single sort of thing. I don't know if it was the Senate hearing. I don't know if it was an accumulation of things. But there was just so much negativity surrounding this program, right? And for better or worse, factual or fabricated, like it seemed like it was going to be a long healing process with Todd Graham as the head football coach. And so I will say I give him credit because there were some loud voices, senators like on the record holding petitions for his firing, for his removal, and also the removal of Matlin and David Lassner, the athletic director and president. But it was just, it's so vitriolic at a point. And for whatever you view that state Senate hearing, right? You've heard folks mention it, that like they ultimately got what they were looking for, whether it was a kangaroo court or whether it was, fair or not. Like they ultimately were looking for a change, and a change came. And, credit to Todd Graham. If he recognized that he wasn't the guy for the job if he recognized that things needed to change for his own well-being, for the well-being of the program, I got to tip my cap at that point, and we'll see what the future holds for him. But it just seemed like a breakup, if you will, was best for all parties involved in this. And we move forward.
It's hard to live in Hawaii when there's this much heat and venom around you. A lot of that stuff, the state Senate hearing, even having to do with Coach Graham's wife, involved in, Facebook messaging with players, families. There was so much involved here that if they were to continue, not to mention everything that just went down the transfer portal, losing the heart and soul of our team on both sides of the football, but trying to pick up the pieces and move forward, and then knowing that you definitely don't have the support of the fan base, definitely don't have support of legislature right now, and then potentially the day-to-day life over here is very uneasy at best. I'm really trying to, be as politically verbal as I can. It's going to be hard to live in Hawaii with everything that went down for the Graham family. And so, yeah, I would totally understand and probably agree with him, what's best for my family and my health, because if you went through everything that they went through, it's going to be hard to live in Hawaii.
Yeah, I think that's fair, right? And things had gotten kind of bad, like it had boiled over. And I think one thing that was clear to me after the Senate hearing, and this was before the news that Todd Graham had chosen to resign, was that, I think it was more than fair to conclude that, look, Todd Graham and the University of Hawaii football program, the program that exists within the state of Hawaii, it just wasn't a natural fit. Like it wasn't, right? And maybe it could have turned into a better fit. And David Matlin had laid out a course of action moving forward, cleaning up some of the language that was allegedly used directed at players, right? All the way down to like finding him mentors, like local mentors, so Graham could learn about Hawaii and the culture and relate more. Like that was some of the more concerning things to me, right? Because like that, it's tough, man. And when a lot of the kids that are leaving in the transfer portal are local kids, when of all the kids that came on the record and spoke publicly in the Senate hearing, I shouldn't say speak, but wrote publicly letters of support, emails of support, like none of those guys were from Hawaii. None of those guys were Polynesian. And I'm not saying that those guys' voices don't matter, but you have to also connect. You cannot just connect with your recruits, right? You've got to connect with the local kids. You've got to connect with the local community. And maybe he could have gotten there, right? If he's here a couple more years, maybe he's got the right mentors. He's got the right guys introducing him to the right people, and the pandemic, kind of stunted a little bit of that natural growth. I get it. But it wasn't a glove in hand fit. Like it just wasn't. That was clearly evident when it came down to it. And that cannot happen again to me. Like that, and we'll get into it here in terms of the qualities we want to see in the next head coach, sort of the profile, the relationships, like what that next coach needs to bring to the table. But like that cannot happen again. And the interesting thing to me was it was very counter to what David Matlin has done in terms of his hires, right? When it comes to other coaches that he has brought in for other high profile positions, whether it was Nick Rolovich, whether it was Iran Ganat, whether it was Robin Amo for the Wahine volleyball team. Like a lot of these coaches had a ton of experience in Hawaii, were connected to Hawaii, played at the University of Hawaii, coached at the University of Hawaii, had already built-in connections. Like Todd Graham had none of those. And so in a way, he was very much behind the eight ball. And look, I think you can make a fair point that he didn't do the right amount of effort to make up for that lack of sort of institutional knowledge, for sort of that lack of cultural knowledge. But like that, it was just not a fit. Like it always just seemed like an awkward, unnatural fit. And again, like maybe after a couple of years, right, there's so many guys who find their way to the islands and embrace it and find a way to make it work and are able to just sort of to assimilate, for lack of a better term. But it just seemed like he and the program, it didn't mesh. It wasn't meshing. and it led to all kinds of friction, some sort of minor and some sort of serious, right? Some of those serious accusations when you're talking about racial language, when you're talking about, not, telling a dude to stop playing ukulele, like all those kinds of things, right? Whatever the level of truth to all of these stories, but it just was not a fit. It really wasn't. And so I think, everybody involved in the decision-making process, like that has to be the biggest takeaway to me, is that like, you got to find somebody who's coming in, whether it's somebody who's already been here or somebody who's very openly, like full open arms, ready to embrace what Hawaii is, what Polynesia is, and what all that comes with it, the good, the bad, the ugly, the things that make you shake your head, the things that make you smile ear to ear, like all of that, like it has to be going forward. And to me, it just was not, it was incongruous with the fit with the head coach in the program.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because he leaves as a 500 win percentage coach. So if you look at it just from a football standpoint, it was not half bad. It would have been 2 bowl appearances had we played in the Hawaii Bowl this last time, and then a bowl win in his first year. Granted, that was kind of an abbreviated half, COVID year, but at the same time, from a wins perspective, night and day compared to Norm Chow, night and day. So, with all of the accusations, everything that went down, I completely agree with you, Jordan. I think that's well said. It's just not a good fit. From the start of everything, it felt like an uphill battle with this guy. And you could tell, from literally comments from him that he didn't have plans to stay in Hawaii long term. And it's kind of just ingrained in the culture of local people over here. I'm not from Hawaii. I was not born and raised over here. Kind of a transplant about 11 years ago now. But my local friends and mentors out here, they have always said that you can tell the people that are real, that are invested in the long-term game that is Hawaii, trying to make this place better, not sucking it up for the resources that it might provide as a leaping pad to wherever you transiently leave in the next portion of your life. And so I equate that to what happened with Todd Graham, where from the jump, it seemed like he was using this as a leaping pad into his next coaching opportunity. And Hawaii people are going to sniff that out from the get. They just are. And so, yeah, without us jumping into the next segment too quick, whoever we get next, I am hoping for some longevity. I would love for us to get someone. I know that they don't do 7-8 year contracts, anything like that, for obvious reasons. But that is my hope, that it's not just the wins and holding on to recruits. We have a program that we have to get our hands dirty in right now. So many things need to be given attention to if we're going to have success down the road than just a head football coach, and it starts there.
Yeah, I agree with that. And again, this isn't necessarily to kick Todd Graham when he's down or anything like that, but I think it's fair to sort of reflect and figure out, right? And you look back a little bit to move forward, because yeah, as you mentioned, like a 500 football team over 2 years, like for a 2-year stretch, you look at any 2-year stretch of University of Hawaii football, there are a lot of other 2-year stretches that were far worse than a 500 record. Of course, the glass half full element to that is, hey, look, he was a 500 football coach. It's tough to win here, the pandemic, all those kinds of things. Glass half empty approach is, hey, maybe if he related to the team better, this is a team that went 10-5 before he got here, and it's all kinds of talent that we're seeing scooped up by Power 5 playoff type programs. Maybe should have achieved more. So whatever way you look at that, the fact of the matter is, look, there's going to be a new head coach there, and they've got a lot to do in terms of piecing this puzzle back together. And so with all that in mind, with the thoughts of, hey, what went wrong, the thoughts of what went right in previous regimes, you kind of mentioned it a little bit, Hunter, but before we take our mid-episode break here, you mentioned longevity, somebody who's maybe going to be here for the long haul. hard to say these days, right? Even a guy like Nick Rolovich, who was fully invested, it's hard to turn down some of these offers that come your way if you do find some success. But what are some other qualities you'd like to see in the next head coach?
As much as you could try to roll the dice again with someone from the mainland that has some sort of Hawaii ties or has the motivation to receive Hawaii with open arms, to throw themselves into the culture, into the community. I think you got to go with somebody that, if not was a previous coach at University of Hawaii, definitely was a former player. I've always felt that way. I've felt that being the coach at University of Hawaii in the state of Hawaii lends itself more challenges than any other program in the United States. I feel like you have to have a PhD of street smarts, if you will, over here to understand the ebbs and the flows that come with sort of the cultural elements, and to come from the mainland without much experience of that, it's so difficult to describe to people, even my own family on the mainland, what it truly is like living, breathing, being out here in Hawaii on a day-to-day basis. And you need to have that if we're going to be able to recruit well, keep the local talent here. I mean, that's always been the same song and dance. If we could keep the talent in Hawaii, we might have a real shot at a real team here. And so, and on top of that, building a winning program and a winning culture over here, I think starts with the culture itself and being able to relate not only to the players, but the fan base as well. So, that's the first thing. And I think it's so obvious that, that Matlin even understands that as well too, because he's trying to save his own job right now with all of the stuff that has gone down with Coach Graham. I think that is absolute top of his list right now is Hawaii ties in our next head coach.
Yeah, I like that. A PhD in street smarts when it comes to Hawaii, because I echo that. I really think that needs to be of top priority, right? We just spent 15 minutes talking about what went wrong with the previous head coach. And so much of that, I think, just stemmed to disconnect between the local players, the local fan base. Like it just didn't work, right? There was something misfiring there. And so I think the next coach, like you need that. You need somebody who can come in that can relate right away, somebody that is relatable to the fan base, to donors, to recruits, like all of the boxes that need to be checked. Like you need somebody who can come in and excite the fan base. You need somebody who can come in and excite people to the extent that they're willing to open their checkbook. Yes. And donate to the program, buy season tickets. Like, I'm not saying you need some boom right away, right? Like we're going to quadruple season tickets. We're going to quintuple donations or anything like that. But just somebody who's going to turn the meter back the other way and at least get that arrow pointing in a positive direction. Somebody who's going to come in and be able to walk into a living room in Laie or Kapolei or Mililani or Kapa'a. Like somebody who's going to be able to go in there, take their shoes off and relate, right? Relate to not only the kid, but their moms, their grandmas, their aunties, like whoever they need to make it very well known that they are wanted at the University of Hawaii. We would like for them to stay home. Somebody who can excite, a marketing campaign, if you will, like just like something, right? There needs to be somebody who can relate to all the different facets that come with being a head football coach. Like you got to be able to relate to those people. I think that is priority number one. Like that's what needs to happen above all else. Somebody with institutional knowledge, which I think you touched on, Hunter, that understands the university, that understands the limitations of the university more than anything. The lack of funding, the lack of facilities, the lack of yada, yada, yada. Like there are a lot of those, right? Somebody that understands the political framework of the University of Hawaii, right? Like the power brokers, the politicians, the people behind the scenes, like fair or not, like having a little bit of that knowledge helps as well, or at least, can shake the right hands and hold the right meetings. Like all of those things are important. And we haven't really touched anything just yet on the field stuff. But I do think, and maybe this is just me being a guy with an offensive background. Maybe this is me being a fan who reminisces about the bygone eras, which aren't that long ago now. Like, I think it's got to be some sort of run and shoot look, whether it's June's run and shoot, whether it's the Rolo Stutzman run and shoot with the RPO game mixed in, whether it's some sort of air raid look like that. The identity of the University of Hawaii football program, when it's had success in the modern era, right? You talk about Bob Wagner, you talk about Dick Tomey. That's a different era. That was a highly successful era. I don't know if the triple option plays.
The game has changed.
It's changed, right? And so that is the identity. I mean, it's very similar to what Washington State did, right? And their athletic director, and Pat Chun, after Mike Leach took his air raid offense down to Mississippi State, he was looking for a very specific individual, somebody who could run that passing attack because it is very much their identity. And I think that should be the University of Hawaii's identity. Like, it is a school that will air it out, that put points on the board, and brings an exciting brand of football. And also, it is a brand of football that I think lends itself to the local recruit, guys that are undersized, guys that aren't big enough necessarily to go play in a
Power 5
back tight end offense, right? Or something like that. We got a lot of little guys who can run around and catch the football. We got a lot of little guys who can run the draw or catch shovel passes and operate out of that. And so I think that also, I would love to see that, whether it's June or whatever, and we can get into specific names here in just a second. But I think that identity on the field also needs to come with that identity off the field, that identity of, hey, look, we are the program of Hawaii. We're the program of Polynesia. We're the program of the Pacific. That also, like, those two things, I think, are the most important. And I would love to see that offense be the offense of the University of Hawaii for eternity. Like, I think that identity in itself is just so valuable. But, maybe that's just me being an offensive guy.
Yeah, I mean, you look around the country, Georgia Tech, they're going to be kind of that veer option style of an offense. The Air Force Academy in our conference, they run sort of a similar thing, a veer option kind of varying run style attack. And then, you look at, some of the bigger names that they're going to be more of a pro style. You look at Alabama, they've kind of made their shift into more of an air raid with the transition of where the modern game is heading. Quarterbacks have dual threat capabilities now. You look at what they're doing in the NFL, and we need to be okay with who we are as an identity as a school, who we are as an identity as a football program. And so I mean, we've been saying this for weeks now, Jordan, that probably since the beginning of our podcast together, that Hawaii needs to have an identity on offense, and it's kind of clear what that looks like. So I think you hit the nail on the head there. Whatever the identity, we got to stick to it, man. And we got to start rebuilding the future around that, I believe.
Yeah, I'm with you there. All right, we'll get into some of the names when we return on the other side of this break. There seems to be a large groundswell for a very, very obvious choice, I think, when we get into it, but we'll hit that on the second half of things. But before that, we got to tell you about our good friends at Xanthin, the only brand that delivers 3 times more astaxanthin than the competition. Astaxanthin helps with joint and muscle function, cholesterol, and cognitive health. It even is recommended by doctors and pharmacists for its anti-aging qualities. Available at getzantho.com, Newtown Square Pharmacy, Down to Earth Kaka'ako, and Pharmacare Hawaii. Again, check out getzantho.com to learn more. That's getzantho.com. All right, second half coming up.
This is Hawaii Football Now from ESPN Honolulu.
All right, Hunter, we spent the first half sort of recapping the week that was, the season that was, the tenure that was for Todd Graham. We turned the page. We look forward. The big question is, are things salvageable in terms of recruiting with signing day looming the first week of February? How quickly can the University of Hawaii move? We record this on Wednesday morning for release on Thursday morning. As of yet, no coaching hire. The University of Hawaii says that they will do things diligently, not necessarily just for the sake of being quick, which is fair. I think you don't want to rush things. Obviously, you want to make the right choice. You want to hire the right guy. But at the same time, time is of the essence. Like, you are on a clock, essentially, when it comes down to the hire here. And it's very similar to the Rolo departure, right, in 2020, a couple of years ago. Like, he left, the news came down on National Championship Monday. Todd Graham resigns the Friday of National Championship week. So it's basically the same week of the football calendar that this head coaching change comes about. And so a similar timeline in terms of getting things in place before signing day. And so with all of the things we talked about, Hunter, in terms of what we want to see in the next head coach, who comes to mind? You've heard a lot of names thrown about. June Jones, his name came up the last time this job came open. He has expressed explicitly in media interviews that he is interested, that he has applied, that he will bring back, a revamped modern run and shoot. Like, he has said that. He's talked about putting together a product that puts a lot of points on the board. Rich Miano, another name, right? Who has worked in local media, calling football games the last handful of years, who was a longtime assistant for June Jones, assistant under Greg McMackin, who has been heavily involved in local football, whether it's the Kaiser football coach, winning a state championship there a number of years now, Polynesian Bowl, Hula Bowl. Like, he is everywhere you look when it comes to football in the 808 and really beyond as well, with some of the Polynesian football classics that are held up in Vegas, the Polynesian Football Hall of Fame. He was another obvious choice. He has since publicly declared that he will not apply, and he has thrown his support behind June, says he will be on June's staff if June is hired. Timmy Chang, University of Hawaii great, former receivers coach at Nevada, has moved over with Jay Norvell to be the receivers coach at Colorado State. Steven Stye reporting that he has been asked to apply. I don't know by who. I'm not sure. I didn't see if Steven followed that up by saying, was it the school that asked him to apply? Was it like his buddies? I don't know. Brian Smith, right? Another recent former University of Hawaii coach, a guy that coached when you were there, Hunter, as some of the names that are directly linked to the University of Hawaii and that have coached at the University of Hawaii or played at the University of Hawaii in recent years. And we can get into some of the other names here that have popped up with strong Hawaii or University of Hawaii connections as well. But of those seem to be the loudest names when you talk to people that have been coming out sort of in reports. And quite honestly, there seems to be a pretty large groundswell for June Jones. But of the guys that we've mentioned, of the guys we haven't mentioned, who comes to mind? Who fits the bill for you, Hunter?
It's interesting. I think with where the program is at, the desperate need to kind of regain some PR and some excitement around the program. When I look at that list of names, other than potentially rolling the dice with Timmy Chang, it kind of feels obvious in my mind that they're going to give June Jones another shot at this. It already kind of feels like some drama has been, churned up. Even with that, some comments from him saying, I've decided to throw my hat in consideration for the sake of where the program is at and wanting to help. So we've got the, big name hero of our program and of our team wanting to get his hands dirty again to try to steer this thing in a positive direction. So I feel like it's kind of a clear choice right now, and there's some advantages to going with a guy like June Jones. I say advantages, some perks, maybe I should say, is that I don't know how long June could actually hold this job. He's no spring chicken any longer. In past coaching stops too, he kind of got cold feet in some places, or just lost his attention, I should say, and is going to go elsewhere. So you bring a guy like June in, you can almost maybe start to groom somebody underneath him. You take care of some of the PR, and we're caring about the program. We're putting it back in the hands of one of the winningest coaches in UH history, and we're starting to rebuild this thing together as a unit. It kind of makes most sense in terms of that. But then when you look at guys like Timmy Chang and even Coach Schmitty, who I got nothing but love for, they haven't been head coaches before, and if I could be as so bold, I don't know if Matlin is in a position to roll the dice in any aspect of what that might look like. So it seems, as peculiar as it might be, wow, okay, June Jones could potentially be our coach again. It almost feels the safest, if that is the right word, that we know what we're going to get with him in a sense. Maybe some of the controversy of old, maybe that was young June, kind of being a wild man a little bit. This is not the time to be that. We need someone that we can depend on, that we know, and kind of have come to expect some certain things from. So those are some of my initial thoughts and feelings about it, Jordan. But again, I'm not in the mind of David Matlin, the guy literally making the decision here. But it could be a heck of a lot of fun, man, if we brought June back.
Yeah, I like a lot of what you said, right? Maybe it's the safest pick, which might not be the worst thing, right? Like somebody who's been a head coach before, somebody who has made a career of salvaging and turning things around when they seem bleak. SMU, taking over a Hamilton team in the CFL that was just kind of middling and turning them into a pretty darn good team. Starting things from scratch, right? The XFL, they were rolling like they were the de facto champs of the XFL when he was in Houston with the Roughnecks. PJ Walker's in the NFL because of June Jones. Like he's a backup in the NFL and got some significant playing time this season with Carolina because of June Jones, and largely Matt Rule, his college coach, was his NFL coach. Don't get me wrong, but the dude got a look because he was terrific in the XFL. He can coach. The connections to Hawaii go without saying, right? And his affinity for the place, we know. And so if he can put together a staff under him, because as you point out, he's no spring chicken. The dude's 68 years old. He turns 69 next month. That's old for college football head coaches, right? That is. But he's always been good about surrounding himself with quality assistant coaches. A guy like Rich Miano, I think, and quite honestly, and I'm biased. Like I've spent a lot of time with Rich. I've called a lot of games with Rich on the high school side. And I've just had an opportunity to talk football with him, just shooting the breeze like a lot. And talking Hawaii football, talking, high school football and everything in between. And the guy's just so connected, and the guy is like so tireless, and his ability to recruit from his time in college. And he hasn't coached since 2012 or 2013 and as a college assistant, but the guy is everywhere. Like everywhere I go, like whether it's a high school practice field or it's a bowl game or it's a combine or whatever, like he's always everywhere, and he's so connected in the pros, collegiately, high school wise. Like he would have been my top choice. But that was sort of, without the knowledge that June was heavily interested, that Rich kind of aligns himself with June. It just seems like the sure thing, right? Like those guys can put together, it's been proven, and maybe they can find some of these other names under it, whether it's Brian Smith, whether it's, luring guys, maybe not Timmy himself, but guys of that ilk that are working their way through the coaching ranks, that have played in the University of Hawaii, that have played in that offensive system, that know it, that can come in, young up and comers. Like those guys all got to start somewhere, right? And so that seems to be the choice to me. And it seems to be the choice if you just sort of take a very unscientific poll of social media and the water cooler. Like, is they're like, oh, June wants back? All right, yeah, let's run it back. That seems to be the choice. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't a number of other really intriguing candidates, right? You guys, you got names like Robert Anaya, whose name has popped up multiple times when this job has come open. He's a Kahuku alum. He's a former Hawaii GA. He was among the short list when Todd Graham got hired. He is the current Syracuse offensive coordinator, was a longtime Bronco Mendenhall assistant at BYU and then over at Virginia. He's a BYU guy, but obviously a ton of ties to Hawaii, has always recruited Hawaii well. You've got guys like Keith Bonofa, right, the former Hawaii running back, coach for a while at the University of Hawaii. He's now the associate head coach for Andy Avalos up at Boise, a very high-ranking assistant, coached at Washington as well under Chris Peterson. He's got a ton of connections. He is known as a really good recruiter. We've got Timmy Chang. You've heard the names of sort of the UCLA Hawaii connection as they just continually get Hawaii guys now, whether it's Darius Muasau in the portal or some of these other signees, but Ikaika Malloy, right? The Kamehameha alum, former University of Hawaii assistant, Brian Norwood, that legendary Radford team in 1981. He's an alum, obviously. His connection to the University of Hawaii as well. You got Chad Kalhaha, the Baldwin graduate, who didn't play at the University of Hawaii, played at the University of Utah, was an all-WAC defensive end there, but he has had a number of different stops. He is known as one of the better Polynesian recruiters in college football as well, from his time at Utah, at Wisconsin, at Oregon State, at USC, most recently at UNLV and Boise prior to getting this UCLA job. You got guys like Tony Tuioti, right, who is as good a recruiter as there is out there, who's got NFL coaching experience, who has coached at Nebraska, Cal, Michigan. Now he's the defensive line coach at Oregon. Like, I mean, some of these assistants, some of these former UH guys are really high level assistants, have gotten to a point where, you know, they're making more money, some of these guys, than like Todd Graham was making as a head coach at the University of Hawaii. So luring them home, even for the head coaching job, might be kind of tough. Maybe that's something they want, but these guys all have never been head coaches before. That doesn't mean they can't be successful head coaches. They all need to start someplace, right? And I don't know if that's the right move. I don't know if those are the right guys. I don't know if, you know, they're interested. On top of that, we do know June is, but I guess my other thought when it comes to listing off some of those names, and I think all of those guys have proven that they are terrific coaches and also really good recruiters. And the University of Hawaii would be lucky to have those guys as assistants or as head coaches. There are other guys younger than Kalhaha and Malloy and Tuioti and Norwood and some of these guys, Bonofa, right? And so there's another generation of young coaches that have come through the University of Hawaii, either as players or stopping off. Like, go find those guys, right? If it is June, if it is Rich, like, there are other young talent in the coaching ranks that can come through and do and carve a path similar to what the guys that we mentioned. And so, you know, if it's not one of those guys, go find the next Chad Kalhaha, right? Go find the next Tony Tuioti, the next guy that can come through. And you know, maybe they're only here for a few years. Maybe they move on, or maybe they're the next head coach in waiting, right, at some point at the University of Hawaii. But there's no shortage of talent in the coaching ranks that have ties to Hawaii, that even if you do hire a June Jones, that they can't be a part of the program, that they can't find their way home, if you will. Or maybe it is one of those guys that we mentioned, these assistants that are high profile, that maybe get that head coaching job. We'll see. I think all of them fit sort of the bill of having the connection, having the relatability, having the cultural cachet for the University of Hawaii, at the very least.
Check. Yeah, all of those guys, you can check that box next to their name. The other interesting thing here, I want to just kind of bring back to June Jones for a second. You know, June is still a Hawaii resident, and a little bit of my world, he's an avid golfer, and an avid golfer in some of the biggest and most prestigious courses and country clubs on Oahu. And I bring that up because, you know, who's also members at these courses? Season ticket holders, big time influencers in terms of funding, NACOA members, people that are literally the lifeblood of the University of Hawaii football program that bankrolls how we run our program. He's playing golf with these guys on consistent basis over at Oahu Country Club. That I bring this up because you need to win the favor of those people again. Well, I mean, I've heard many conversations from season ticket holders that they are pulling their support because of what has transpired the last 2 seasons. We have to look after those whales, because those whales are immediately connected to the lifeblood of our program. And so I'm not saying that the other coaches can't, wield that favor with, these certain individuals, but that is something that I hope Matlin is seriously considering, as well, on top of, bringing June in for everything else that he brings. He is a very, very connected individual with potentially getting support and funding back into our program.
That's such a huge part of the equation, right? Like it absolutely is. And it has to factor into the decision-making process. And so, yeah, it just seems like that's the direction we're heading. But you bring up a great point, Hunter, in the fact that, like, I don't know what David Matlin is looking at here, right? Like, I don't know what his ideal candidate is. I don't know what his rubric looks like in terms of, hey, who fills out the best, who looks there, because as we pointed out, like, he has made some hires that would lead you to believe that it is somebody from within the family, if you will.
Yeah.
Right. Football wise, hired Rolo. Basketball, he hired Aran Ganat. Women's volleyball, Robin Amo. Right. And those have all had decent success at different points throughout, but all were very much part of the UH fabric at one point in their careers, fairly on the younger end of the age spectrum when it comes to coaches as well. So June wouldn't necessarily fit that box. Baseball, he just hired Rich Hill, who is a guy from the University of San Diego that comes over and, has a strong affinity for Hawaii, has spoke about that, but hasn't necessarily coached here, right? So it's kind of an in-between. It's not Todd Graham, who is very little connection to Hawaii, but hasn't coached here. But he's also not a guy that had spent time here as a coach or whatnot, had recruited well, has done camps and things like that. So it'd be kind of interesting there to see how the Rich Hill thing plays out, but he has hired local assistants as well, Dave Nakama and others, on that coaching staff, which I think is a huge part of the equation for Rich Hill and his potential success on the diamond. Yeah. But I bring up a guy like Brent Brennan, right? He has been thrown around as sort of a dark horse candidate for this job, the San Jose State head coach, who has gotten a raise. I believe his base salary is up to like $850,000 incentives. Like, he's a guy that's nearing the 7-figure mark. Has had a lot of success at San Jose State, won the Mountain West Conference in 2020, was a short-time assistant at the University of Hawaii, has a strong affinity for Hawaii, has recruited Hawaii increasingly well, including getting Chevin Cordero in the transfer portal. He's cousins with Colt Brennan. Like, there are all kinds of connections, and he's a guy who has head coaching experience. He's a guy who, again, sort of fits this role. He's spent a little time at Hawaii, but maybe not quite as ingrained as some of these other names we throw out there, but he is a guy who has run a program successfully. And so names like that are also thrown. I think it's a pretty dark horse, slim chance type of possibility. But what do you think of guys like that, Hunter, who, are head coach? We've already seen jumps within conference. Jay Norvell goes from Nevada to Colorado State. We've seen multiple starting quarterbacks transfer within conference. Chevin Cordero, Levi Williams goes from Wyoming to Colorado State, I believe it is, or Utah State. He might've gone to Utah State. But these things aren't too rare nowadays in college football. But, I was pretty intrigued because I do love really what Brent Brennan has done at San Jose State, where, he's turned that thing into a really competitive program after they had been the doormat of the conference at many times throughout their history.
Yeah, no, I've said it before on this podcast that San Jose State has completely transformed from kind of a sleeper on our schedule to someone that is a problem. And that's just in my time of being around the program from, 2014 to present. And a lot of that, maybe not entirely, but a lot of that falls to Coach Brent Brennan and the job that he's done up there. So, yeah, I mean, that's a really intriguing one for me too. I mean, it's such an interesting landscape with college football these days. Players have next to no allegiance any longer. Coaches have next to no allegiance. Power Five, it seems like the mighty green dollar just rules everything. Um, I bring that up because, if Coach Brennan were to jump over here, it's like, why would you bring Shevin over to San Jose State if you're not going to be there and try to build something together? So that part of that, if that were to transpire, would be my first question. What about Chev? He literally just jumped from Hawaii to come be your quarterback. But again, that all of that remains to be seen. He does have a history, like June Jones, turning programs around, and I think more than securing a 10-win season or anything like that, securing the future of our program and getting this thing back on track on a ground level is the number one priority for the head coaching job at UH.
Yeah, it really is. And so if you had to make a pick right now, Hunter, who's your guy?
I've there's a lot of guys on there. Coach Schmitty did a great job with us. I think, in my mind, the public outcry that seems to be one of the biggest forces right now, everything that happened with Coach Graham, that line from Gladiator, "Win the crowd." The crowd is pretty influential out here in Hawaii. And they have spoken. It seems quite clear that they want Coach June. And Matlin is in kind of a PR war right now with holding that crowd as much as he can near and dear to UH. And so I think, in my mind, I'd give it an 80 or 85% chance it's probably going to be June Jones.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think it's the choice that some would say is too obvious, right? It's like, maybe because it's so obvious it's not the right call or something like that. But yeah, I think June's the call. I think at this point in time, like, he's the guy to steer the ship off the rocks and get this thing back, heading toward the North Star, if you will, with some navigational experience in terms of righting the ship when it comes to some of these programs that he has taken over, including the University of Hawaii once before. So yeah, I think that's where I'm at. Who knows? We could get a coach real soon. And we'll see how that goes, and we'll be here to react to all of it next week on Hawaii Football Now. All right, we'll kind of wrap the discussion up there. The football program that just keeps on giving. Well, I'm sure we'll have more to talk about next week, Hunter. I'd be shocked if we don't have a coaching hire by the time we record this thing middle of next week. So looking forward to that. All right, quick overtime segment here. NFL playoffs. Okay, opening weekend, you had a couple of close ones and a bunch of blowouts. We've basically eliminated half the field, 6 teams out, 8 teams remaining. Hunter, who do you like to get to the Super Bowl? Who do you think's getting there?
Oh man, we haven't seen Green Bay play yet.
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty strong. Watch out for the GOAT. Man, he's scary. Mm-hmm. Tampa, for people who are maybe not as versed right there, that's what I'm referring to. I love the Bills, man. I love
Me too.
I love Bill Nation up there and everything that they're a gritty fan base. It's cold up there. Allen, coming from the Mountain West, and we've got a little connection to him. Love his style. They're fun to watch, man. I'd love to break into this in the next episode too, that I think the NFL should have absolute play calling reversal to protect these referees from anything like what has already transpired in the playoffs happening in the future. I mean, we're in 2022. Everyone on TV can, hear the whistle in the Cincy Raider game. Can see the ref run into Dak Prescott at the end of the game. Again, all sorts of other things happen in those environments, but I'm just saying the NFL in the future that we're in right now should have absolute reversal ability from the league office. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's probably a good call. I like the Bills too. I like the Bills. I'm going to pick them out of the AFC. I think whoever wins that game, the Bills Chiefs game, is the team to get to the Super Bowl out of the AFC. But yeah, I just like what the Bills are doing right now on both sides of the football. And then in the NFC, like I kind of don't want to pick against Rodgers. But history will tell you, like even some of his best teams, they always sort of fall the win short, right? He hadn't really been to the Super Bowl since they won it over a decade ago. And so I don't know. I kind of just keep going back to Tom Brady. They looked pretty good against the Eagles. The Eagles, I think, were a bit overinflated in terms of their resume. Like they really didn't beat anybody throughout the regular season. But if Tom Brady gets some of those no-name receivers, the Tyler Johnsons and the Cyril Grayson or whatever that dude's name is, like if he gets some of those guys on the same page, because they were just missing some throws on what was it, Saturday, Sunday, and it's there. And so I still think Tampa with that defense, I'm going to pick them. I'm going to pick Tampa and Buffalo. That'd be a lot of fun. Josh Allen against the old wily veteran. Go Mountain West.
Go, baby.
Go Cowboys. All right, Hunter, we'll give you the last thought here. Anything to take us home before we close out this episode?
Oh, man. Warrior Nation, we're with you. We are crossing our fingers, praying, hoping for the best along with you guys. It's time for the sun to finally rise again. We have experienced the dark night of the soul that is University of Hawaii football, and we need a sunrise bad, and we need it quick. So with that, thank you, and hope you guys have a great week.
Yeah, it might be like Haley's Comet. It only comes around every so often, but June may be back. We'll see. Or it might be somebody we didn't even talk about today.
Yeah.
Also kind of wouldn't surprise me the way that things go here. All right, that does it for us. Episode 21, Hawaii Football Now. I'll be sure to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Drop us a line, drop us a comment. Tell us who you'd like to see as the next head football coach. Again, a big mahalo to our sponsor, Xanthison, as well as Spectrum Mobile. For Hunter, I'm Jordan, and we will see you next week. And who knows? Could be a head coach when we come back to discuss things. We'll see everybody next week on Hawaii Football Now. Aloha.
You've been listening to Hawaii Football Now with Jordan Helle and Hunter Hughes, all from ESPN Honolulu.